And around the continent, tensions between university lecturers and federal government in Nigeria have reached a boiling point. The Academic Staff Union of Universities is standing firm after officials warned that educators who continue with their strike could face the no work, no pay policy. Lecturers, however, say they won't be intimidated, insisting that their demands for better funding, fair wages, and improved working conditions remain non-negotiable. The standoff has once again disrupted academic calendars and heightened concerns over the state of higher education in Africa's most populous nation. We speak now to Professor Chris Piwuna to find out the latest. He is ASUU president. Professor, very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Perhaps we should just first start with the context of this situation, how it came about, and if you believe it has snowballed into something that is unmanageable.
Well, thank you very much for having us on this program. I don't think it's unmanageable. If the government is serious, they can manage it. We've just made our case to them. Nigerian universities have suffered chronic underfunding from the military era, where the military leaders at the time subscribed to the Bretton Woods Institute, where they introduced austerity measures. And as a result of that, we suffered chronic underfunding because once the austerity measures came into place, government withdrew services. Government withdrew services from social responsibilities such as education, social welfare, water supply, transport, and all of that. And as a result of that, funding had continued to be a problem. And when the military left, we had them replaced by neoliberal warlords who had worked in these neoliberal institutions outside the country, and they had come to implement those policies. And so ideologically, our union continues to see actions of government from a very different perspective. We think that education is public good, and every Nigerian child deserves education from primary to university level. That is not how our government sees it. Government sees education as a commercial, a commodity, that need to be sold to its citizens. And so we've continued to have that battle with the Nigerian government. But added to that is that our welfare is one of the poorest in Africa today. What we earn is nothing compared to any West African or African average. And so we've continued to draw attention of government to it. Is their lack of attention that has led us to where we are today.
So before we get to the comparison with other countries, so am I to understand that this problem is not just at tertiary level? You're saying it's at both foundational phases and secondary levels, that it's a general problem of teaching and education in Nigeria?
Exactly. That's the point. In fact, we believe that if it were not for the principled stance of our union, our universities would have gone the way of primary and secondary schools in this country. But because we have stood firm against any attempt by government to commodify education, university education in particular, and to provide the infrastructure that is needed, library, provide money for research, and all other services that are needed to give us the idea of a university, it's because we've stood firm against, these attempts by our leaders. Otherwise, our universities would have gone the way of primary and public primary and secondary schools.
So give us an indication of how much a lecturer at Nigerian university would earn on a monthly basis or even an annual salary. And you did mention that a lot of the benefits have been taken away, and you are making comparisons that they earn lower than others in other countries. Can you give us some of those countries that you're comparing to?
Well, Nigeria ranks much lower than even our West African brothers. For a professor in Nigeria, our earning is about $350 per month, equivalent of $250 per month. And I think we are only better than countries like Zimbabwe and two other countries. Our colleagues here in Ghana earn twice or almost three times what we earn, even as a professor. And that has affected mobility. We are unable to attract quality researchers, quality intellectuals into our system because nobody would want to leave a place where you earn, 2, 3, 4 times what you're coming to do. Even for Nigerians that are outside the country to come back home, it's impossible. They have responsibilities, they have children, they have schools fees to pay, they have social services to, get for their families. And so we are actually right down under. And our union is saying, thus far, no further. We're not taking it
anymore. So what specific reforms or funding mechanisms are you then suggesting? And is there a timeline for it?
Well, part of the reforms that we are suggesting to government, we've suggested to government sustainable ways of funding education. And we believe that if education is funded adequately, the issue of our welfare is part of funding of education. The issue of services such as libraries in the university, funding of research, and all of that will increase. But let me say one thing here. The Nigerian government, through an agency called the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, has made modest progress in ensuring that research is funded. We want more from government to support research, but there is some movement in that regard by the government of the day. I think just this year, there's been a substantial increase in the amount meant for research. But there are other reforms that we're suggesting. We think that there should be a stabilization fund that will be housed in the National Universities Commission, where infrastructural deficits can further be, improved upon. We believe that there should be another fund called Restoration Fund, and that Restoration Fund can be used for specific areas within our universities. We have also suggested to government that they could tax GSM calls. They could get tax from other companies within the country to improve on what the percentage that companies pay as education tax in this country. So there are reforms that we have suggested to government, and we are discussing with them. Government thinks they are doing enough, and we're just trying to prove to them that their enough is not enough.
Mm. So there is a suggestion that some Nigerians are getting very tired of these repeated strikes because they see them as cyclical and they feel that they're exhausting. What is your response to that?
It's about leadership. It's Nigerians that elect the leaders that pay little or no attention to education. Once we get leadership right, a leadership that values and prioritizes education, strikes will be a thing of the past. But for as long as we continue to elect leaders, Nigerians need to take responsibility for the strike itself. All of us Nigerians, I think we need to pay attention to the kind of leaders that we elect, that we vote for each time there is election. ethnicity, religious sentiments must take the back seat. And our democratic institutions must also show some independence in ensuring that they conduct themselves well during elections. The National Electoral Commission, uh, our judiciary system, these are institutions that can ensure that the right leadership emerges. And if we strengthen those institutions, certainly we will have better leaders and those that will pay serious attention to education. But I believe that we all as Nigerians have to take responsibility for this cyclical nature of strikes in this country. Our union, before we embark on any strike, I tell you, strike in our union is one of the most cumbersome exercises. The process is so tortuous and difficult. So before we get to this point, we would have met with government officials, we would have written them, we would have discussed with opinion leaders, traditional rulers, all those that have served in government. We visit them, we try to lobby them, tell them what the problem is. It is when all of that fails that we embark on a strike action.
Right.
People have asked us.
In short, what is next? What is next? How do you intend to resolve the impasse?
Well, the government has invited us to a meeting on Thursday. That's in 2 days' time. And we look forward to the meeting. Our union is always available. We are accessible. We are always willing to discuss with government. And we believe that if we go back to the table and something reasonable is brought on the table, we assume that we are reasonable people. And so if anything reasonable comes to us, we should be able to say, well, this makes sense. And so we can withdraw our action or suspend our action for further engagements, if government is truthful to us. So we believe that the table is the place to solve this problem. And we are ready to go back to the table to ensure that this problem is put behind us.
All right. Professor Chris Piwuna, thank you very much for your time. Professor Piwuna is the president of